I overheard her tell her friend, "He's just good for now. I'm keeping my options open." The next day, I closed our joint account, moved out, and ghosted. She's now on her third option, and all of them cheated on her. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The smell of garlic and rosemary was starting to fill the apartment. I was searing 2 ribeye steaks, the sizzle a satisfying promise of the night to come. On the counter, next to a bottle of Cabernet that had cost me half a day's pay, were 2 tickets to the Orion Music Festival. I'd pulled 3 strings at work to get them. Qley had been talking about nothing else for months. This was our Tuesday night ritual. I cooked. She decompressed from her day. It was my favorite part of the week. I loved the quiet intimacy of it, the way our apartment felt like a fortress against the world. For 3 years, this had been my definition of home. I wiped my hands on a towel, checking the time. She'd be home any minute. The jacket I wanted to wear, the dark blue one she said brought out my eyes, was in the walk-in closet off the bedroom. I pushed the door open, the hinge giving its familiar, faint whine. I was rifling through my side of the rack when I heard the front door open and the jingle of keys hitting the ceramic bowl by the entrance. A wave of her perfume, jasmine and sandalwood, drifted in before she did. "Babe, I'm home. Oh my God, it smells amazing in here." I smiled, my hand closing on the sleeve of the jacket. I was about to call out when another voice cut through the air. "Wow, he really does cook for you every night. That's domestic." Maya, Qley's best friend. My smile faltered. Tuesday nights were our nights. But Qley was a social creature, and I'd long ago accepted that her friends were a package deal. I decided to stay put for a second, not wanting to launch into the small talk just yet. I'd let them chat for a minute, then emerge. I heard the thud of purses and the creak of the sofa. I know. He's great," Qley said, her voice a mix of affection and something else I couldn't quite place. "He's stable, he's nice, he cooks, he's just good for now." The air left my lungs. Just like that. As if someone had punched me in the diaphragm. I stood frozen in the semi-darkness, the jacket hanging limply from my hand. Maya laughed. It was a sharp, knowing sound. "So what's the plan?" "The plan is to keep my options open, obviously," Qley said, her voice dropping into a conspiratorial tone. "I'm young. I'm not locking myself down to the first decent guy I meet. I'm talking to this guy, Jason, from the spin class. He's a personal trainer, total fire. And Mark from my office is always flirting. It's just smart to have a roster." A roster. The word landed like a physical blow. I felt a cold numbness spread from my core to my fingertips. This wasn't a stray comment. This was a philosophy. "And Alex has no idea?" Maya asked, echoing the question screaming in my own head. "God, no," Qley said, and I could hear the eye roll in her voice. "He's so oblivious. He thinks planning a future means picking out throw pillows. It's kind of pathetic, really. He's my safety net. Nothing more. Safety net. Good for now. Pathetic." Each phrase was a nail. I saw the concert tickets on the counter. I thought of the ring I'd looked at online just last week, a simple solitaire I'd been saving for. I thought of the spreadsheet I kept on my computer, the one titled future_house.xlsx, with tabs for down payment calculations and mortgage rates. I thought I was building a foundation. She saw it as picking out throw pillows. The sizzle from the pan had quieted to a faint hiss. The stakes were probably overcasting. I didn't care. The familiar sounds and smells of our home had curdled, turning alien and hostile. A memory flashed, unbidden. Us, 6 months ago, looking at a terrible apartment for laughs. On the way home, she'd held my hand and said, "I don't care where we live, as long as it's with you." I had believed her. I had felt like the luckiest man alive. The contrast was so violent it was almost nauseating. My commitment was her consolation prize. My loyalty was her cage. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. The hot, sharp pain of betrayal began to cool, hardening into something else entirely. A cold, diamond-hard core of resolve. The urge to storm out, to scream, to confront her, rose and then vanished just as quickly. What would be the point? You can't argue with a verdict that's already been passed. With a slow, deliberate motion that felt both alien and utterly right, I hung the blue jacket back on the rod. I didn't need it anymore. I pulled out my phone. The screen glowed in the closet's darkness. I opened the restaurant reservation app, found the booking for the Pearl this Saturday for our anniversary, and with a single, decisive tap, I canceled it. Then, I quietly pushed the closet door open just enough to slip out. I didn't look toward the living room. I walked straight into the kitchen, past the overcooked steaks and the expensive wine, and turned off the stove. The conversation in the living room had moved on to Maya's dating drama. They were laughing. They hadn't heard a thing. I stood there for a moment, my back to them, my hands flat on the cool granite countertop. My face in the dark reflection of the microwave door was a mask of perfect calm. Inside, the fortress was already empty. I was just waiting for the dust to settle before I walked out of the ruins. The numbness held through the night. I slept on the couch, though sleep wasn't the right word. It was a state of suspended animation, my mind a blank, white screen. When the gray light of dawn filtered through the blinds, I was already moving. There was no agonizing, no second-guessing. The decision had been made the moment I heard the truth. Now, it was just execution. I called my boss at 7 a.m. "Mike, it's Alex. I won't be in today. A personal matter." My voice was flat, professional. He asked if everything was okay. "It will be," I said and hung up. Qley left for work at 8:15, humming, oblivious. She kissed the air near my cheek. "See you tonight, baby. Love you." The words, once a balm, were now just empty noise. I didn't respond. I just watched the door close behind her. Then, I got to work. I started in the bedroom, but it wasn't packing, not really. It was an extraction. I took only what was mine before her. My books, my specific clothing, the watch my father gave me. I left the throw pillows, the garish abstract painting we'd bought together at a street fair, the matching sets of towels. I left the concert tickets on her pillow. Let one of her options take her. I hired a guy with a van from an app. His name was Leo, and he didn't ask questions as we loaded boxes of my life into the back. I'd booked a month-to-month lease on a sterile, furnished studio across town. It wasn't a home. It was a forward operating base. The bank was my next stop. The joint savings account had been our future fund. I'd meticulously tracked every deposit. I printed the statements, highlighted my contributions, and handed them to the teller. "I'd like to close this account and transfer the balance to my personal savings." I left the joint checking account open with exactly half of the next month's rent. I wasn't leaving her stranded. I was settling a debt. Nothing more. By 2:37 p.m., I was standing in the empty space that had been my side of the closet. The apartment felt hollowed out, a shell. I took one last look around. The ghost of the rosemary and garlic from last night still lingered, a sickening reminder. I walked to the kitchen counter, placed the key next to the now-cold steaks, and anchored it with a single yellow sticky note. "I've moved out. My share of the rent is in the account." Alex, no explanation. No emotion. Just facts. In the Uber to my new studio, I opened my phone. I went through the list methodically. Block Qley. Block Maya. Unfollow. Unfriend. Block on every social platform. I deleted her number. I wasn't just leaving the apartment. I was deleting myself from her world. By the time I carried the first box into the blank, white room that was now my home, the digital ghosting was complete. The silence I had created was absolute. The first week was a vacuum. The silence in the studio was heavy, but it was a clean silence. It wasn't filled with her laughter or her music. It was just quiet. I focused on the physical, assembling a desk, buying groceries for one, learning the rhythm of a life that was entirely my own. The pain was there, a dull ache, but it was overshadowed by the sheer novelty of existing without the performance of being a safety net. The first breach in my digital fortress came on day 4. A text from an unknown number. "Unknown, Alex? Where are you? Are you okay? The apartment is half empty. Call me." I stared at the screen. The concern felt performative. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about the disruption to her ecosystem. I deleted it and blocked the number. The texts continued, a slow drip of confusion shifting into irritation. They were like messages in a bottle, tossed into a sea I no longer sailed. Unknown, 2, this isn't funny. My mom is worried. Please answer. Unknown, 3, okay, I get it, you're mad. We need to talk about this. I didn't. There was nothing to talk about. She had stated her position with perfect clarity. I had simply accepted it. Then, 2 weeks in, the first karma bomb detonated. My phone vibrated with a voicemail. I almost deleted it, but some detached, clinical part of me wanted to document the unraveling. I pressed play. Her voice was thick, panicked. Alex, it's me. Look, Jason, the guy from the gym, he was a mistake. A huge mistake. I found out he's been seeing, like, 3 other women. He cheated on me. Can you believe that? The lies he told me. I need to talk to you. You were right about everything. I'm so sorry. I felt nothing. No schadenfreude. No sympathy. It was just data. The first option on her roster was defective. A predictable outcome. I deleted the voicemail and blocked that number, too. A month passed. My studio started to feel less like a base and more like a sanctuary. I was reading again. I started working out. The texts became less frequent, angrier. Unknown. For so you're just never going to speak to me again? After 3 years? You're really that immature? Unknown. 5 Mark from my office has been really supportive, for your information. He's a real man, not a coward who runs away. I almost smiled at that. The script was so transparent. See, someone else wants me. Your inaction is a flaw in you, not a consequence of my actions. I blocked both numbers. The second karma hit came about 6 weeks later, this one more explosive. Another voicemail, this one hysterical, barely coherent. He cheated too. Mark. With his assistant. I saw the texts. What is wrong with everyone? Alex, please, I'm begging you. I see it now. I was stupid. You were my rock. You're the only one who wasn't just using me. Please, just call me back. I have no one. This safety net was now her only perceived lifeline. The irony was so perfect it was almost poetic. I deleted the message. The final attempt at triangulation came from Maya. Her number popped up on my screen, probably from a work phone. I answered out of morbid curiosity. Alex, Jesus Christ, enough is enough. Her voice was sharp, accusatory. Qley is a wreck. Yeah, she messed up, but you're being cruel. She's learned her lesson. These other guys are scum. You need to be the bigger person and forgive her. I held the phone to my ear, saying nothing. I could hear Qley sobbing in the background. Are you even listening? Maya snapped. She's lost weight. She cried at work. This is killing her. She just needs you to be the good guy here. The guy she fell in love with. The good guy. The rock. The safety net. Always my role. To absorb the damage and provide stability, regardless of the shrapnel in my own chest. I didn't speak. I simply ended the call, placed the phone on the counter, and blocked the number. The silence that returned was not empty. It was full of my own peace. And it was mine alone. 6 months to the day after I walked out, I was sitting in the Grind, a coffee shop that had become my unofficial office. The place was all exposed brick and reclaimed wood, filled with the low hum of creative types and the rich scent of single-origin beans. I was there meeting with the manager, David, going over the books. The side project app I developed in the white-hot focus of my post-Qley life had been acquired, and I'd used the capital to become a silent partner in this small local chain. It was my safety net, repurposed into a trampoline. We were wrapping up when the bell on the door chimed. I didn't look up until I heard a voice, thin and hesitant, cut through the ambient noise. Alex? Oh my God. I can't believe it's you. Qley stood by the door, clutching a to-go cup from a cheaper chain down the street. She looked diminished. Her clothes were rumpled, her hair lacked its usual shine, and there were dark smudges under her eyes that makeup hadn't quite concealed. She was a faded photocopy of the woman I'd known. I felt nothing. Not a flicker of anger, not a pang of pity. It was like looking at a stranger who had vaguely unpleasant energy. Qley, I said, my tone neutral, the way you'd acknowledge a cashier. She drifted toward my table, her movements unsteady. David, sensing the shift, gave me a nod and melted away toward the back. Look, I know you don't want to talk to me. I get it, she began, her words tumbling out in a rehearsed rush. But seeing you, I have to say this. I was an idiot. A massive, entitled idiot. Those guys, they were all just options. She spat the word like it was poison. And every single one of them cheated on me. It was like karma. I lost my job because I was so distracted and kept showing up a mess. I'm a mess. She paused, waiting for me to take the bait. To say, I'm sorry to hear that, or that's awful. To offer the sympathy that had always been her due. I simply watched her, my hands resting calmly on the table. My silence was a wall. Her voice broke, the tears starting for real now. You were the only real thing I had. You were my safety net, my home. And I threw it all away because I thought I could do better. I can't. I need my safety net back. I let the words hang in the air between us. Let her hear how pathetic they sounded. Then I took a slow, deliberate sip of my coffee. The porcelain cup clicked softly as I set it back in its saucer. I know, I said, my voice even and clear. She blinked, confused. You know? I know I was just good for now. I met her gaze, my eyes steady. I know you were keeping your options open. I know you thought it was kind of pathetic that I was committed to you. The color drained from her face. It was a beautiful, horrifying thing to watch. The realization that I had heard every single word, that her casual cruelty had been witnessed, that her entire narrative of my cowardly disappearance was a lie. The foundation of her victimhood crumbled to dust right there in the coffee shop. So, you see, I continued, gesturing subtly around the thriving business. Your options played out exactly as one would expect. Unstable people make for unstable relationships. And as for your safety net, I paused, letting my gaze sweep the room once more before returning to her. I repurposed it. It's now the foundation for a life I actually want. A life where I'm not just a temporary placeholder. The tears turned hot and sharp, fueled by humiliation now. So that's it, she hissed, her voice trembling with a fresh, angry energy. You're just going to throw away everything we had because of one stupid conversation? I stood up, smoothing my jacket. The movement was final. I looked down at her, not with hatred, but with a profound, unshakable indifference. It was the most powerful rejection possible. I didn't throw it away, Qley. You did. The moment you decided I was just good for now. I picked up my tablet, the symbol of my new, self-directed life. I simply accepted your assessment and moved on. I suggest you do the same. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked toward the door, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face through the glass. I didn't look back. I knew what I would see. A woman standing alone in the success and stability she had so carelessly discarded, finally understanding that the one option that had truly valued her was now permanently and peacefully closed. The balcony of my new apartment faced west, catching the last of the evening sun. It was a real place, with a view of the city skyline that I'd bought for myself. No joint accounts, no spreadsheets for a shared future. Just me, a comfortable chair, and the quiet hum of a life I had built on my own terms. I was planning a trip, not a romantic getaway, but a solo hiking trek through a national park I'd always wanted to see. The guidebook was open on my lap. This was the upgrade. Not a new woman, but a new world. The peace was the prize. My phone buzzed on the glass table beside me. A text from an unknown number. I didn't need to guess who it was. Unknown, I saw your LinkedIn. So you're a big shot now? A partner. You think that makes you better than me? You're still the same cold, emotionally stunted coward who abandoned me when I needed you most. I hope you're happy alone, you selfish bastard. You used me for years, and then threw me away like trash. The words were meant to be barbs, to hook into my guilt and reel me back into her drama. But they had no purchase. They were just words on a screen, the final, sputtering flare of a dying star. I didn't read it twice. I didn't feel anger or satisfaction. I felt a mild, distant annoyance at the interruption of my peace. I tapped the screen, selected the message, and hit delete. Then I navigated to my settings and blocked the number for what I knew would be the final time. I set the phone down and looked out at the city, the lights beginning to twinkle in the deep blue twilight. The silence of the evening settled around me, deep and comforting. And for the first time in years, the silence wasn't empty. It was full of everything I needed. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.